All right. Hey, guess what? Good evening. My name is Mark Benchop. We're going to rock and roll this evening. You know, consistency does matter. We do have a lot of things, lots of things we want to inform you about this evening. A lot of bad things in that beautiful country of ours we call Guyana. Lots of bad things. Do spread the word, share the link, because we don't want to spend a long time telling you share the link, share the link, share the link, share the link. We appreciate the fact that you do share the link. We thank you so much for that. We have, as soon as I'm done, letting you know important things in Guyana, those bad things that have happened in Guyana. We'll have a young man on by the name of Tion Coggins. He's with us this evening. So let me give you a chance to share the link, spread the word that we are on with serious political matters, seriousness. Welcome to Straight Up. My name is Mark Benchap.
I'm in the mood, I'm feeling rude, I'm feeling hot, I want to run. The feeling exciting, so darling, let's do something. I wanna rub my body on your body. Body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub and love him. I wanna rub and kiss him. I wanna rub and jam him. I wanna rub and rub him. I wanna rub my body on your body. Rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body. Rub my body on your body. I just get paid. I want to play. The vibes is right. I wanna hug up tight. No time to waste. I wanna work my ways. So come on up, babes. Give me a taste. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub and love him. I wanna rub and kiss him. I wanna rub and jam him. I wanna rub and rub him. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Well, no, I'm feeling, 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 I'm feeling. smoke in my brain. I wanna do my thing. Work up a sweat until I soaking wet. Rub your body, show no mercy, because I'm feeling tipsy, I'm feeling freaky. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub and love up. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Get come down. Come down.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income identity, that if you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Killian Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins firm.
That little ditty we used to torment our teachers with when we were kids goes something like this. Onward, upward, Mary had a go. Day by day she tied it to a rope, till at length they got busty rope, and Miss Mary had to run behind it. We had a lot of fun with that, but do you actually know how beautiful these words are? Here's the Song of Guyana's Children by W. Hawley Bryant. Born in the land of the mighty Roraima, land of great rivers and far-stretching sea, so like the mountains, the sea, and the river, great, wide, and deep in our lives would we be. Onward, upward, may we ever go, day by day in strength and beauty grow, till at length we each of us may show what Guyana sons and daughters.
All right. Hey, guess what? Good evening. I want to apologize. We don't usually start late at all, but some not technical glitches, right? But internet problems. And I don't know, internet problems. That's what it is. But if you ask whether we have paid our bill, internet bill, that is, now that's another story, right? I think our operator, who is also responsible for ensuring that our bills are taken care of, believe that Lemon actually paid the bill. We have a young man. We want to talk to this young man about the upcoming Congress in the PNCR. We want to get a view from young people in general. What are they thinking? And now, before I get into anything, let me see some of your comments. Let me see some of your comments here. Good evening to all of you. Let me see, because I got a note from Lemon that says, can you imagine we do not have the regular bunch of trench crappos destructing our program? And usually what Lemon does, Lemon squeeze some lemon, because you know when you squeeze lemon and you throw salt on crapo back, what has happened, right? Maybe we should squeeze some salt on some of the politicians back too as well, some of those members of parliament as well, across the board, right? And on the side of the coalition, they got some good members of parliament, and they get some lagu-bagu members of parliament in the opposition as well. The lagu-bagu ones, don't call me, don't ask me anything. You know who they are. I know who they are. We all know who they are. And those lagu-bagus in the APNU AFC coalition as members of parliament, I'm going to whisper this here. They know who they are too. Putting that aside, there's still some good ones, some hardworking ones indeed. I don't know what sort of face. Oh yeah, Malcolm Luther is always a funny guy, or a guy. I don't know. He's a funny guy. Roxanne Best. Good evening. Now look, I want to talk about Roxanne for a quick comment, a quick minute. Roxanne Best. And for those of you who don't share the link, forget it. We wouldn't throw salt on your back. But Roxanne Best has been looking for justice, seeking justice for her son, who was murdered a few months back. And guess what happened? Nothing has happened. She's still crying out. She's still fighting for justice. It's like nobody cares about what the heck is happening in that beautiful country. And so that mother, that woman, Roxanne Best, is still fighting, is still struggling to ensure that there's justice for her son. I don't know. One of these good days, maybe very soon, I will have her on this show to talk about her problems. Lots of people can be on to talk about their problems. Now, I have noticed that the Guyana police force, they're now describing people as African Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, right? So they moved from male Negro to African Guyanese. Now, I want those who are responsible for this in the Guyana police force, that they never described persons of African descent, never described them, whether they're suspects, whether they're charged, whether they are wanted for fraud or whatever, as male Negro. Male Negro wanted. Male Negro. Speaking of wanted, let's go. Thank you so much, Lemon. Let's go. Lemon is a bit slow tonight, but he's been working very, very hard. Maybe because he knows that there's a pay raise somewhere along the line, a pay raise for Lemon, right? Now, look at this here now. Look at this here. Look at this. Speaking of wanted, I hope that they're going to have this guy up against the wall, take his photograph, right? When they do get him, take his photograph and let us see his photograph like this too, like this, because he is wanted. Now, what's happening here? Sidney James. Don't mistake him for that announcer, that broadcaster who used to be at Guyana Broadcasting Corporation by the name of James Sidney. James Sidney was a different character, a nice guy. But this guy is Sidney James. Now, let me give you guys a little background about him. I should know him very well because during the days of the struggle, when we were on the ground, on the battlefield with our boots on, doing the thing, a few of us, grassroots people, a few of us, mind you, right? This guy had folks. This guy had folks, special branch people 4, 5, 6 special branch folks every single day following me. God in heaven knows for what. If I go in the church, the special branch there. If I go at a Puri stand, the special branch there. If I go by Savitri, the special branch there. If I go by Bonita, the special branch there. Anywhere I go, the special branch was there because of this guy. And I'm sure that he put special branch spying on us on behalf of Jack Jiao and the PPP all over, spying on us. So there's not much could have been done. Imagine being at Savitri and special branch, you peep through the window and you see special branch there. 4 or 5 of them waiting on me. Oh gosh, I don't know, right? It might sound as a joke to you, but a special branch all over. All over, special branch. This guy, yes, he was head of the IMCOR, the Army Intelligence. He was the guy. This is the guy also, right? Yeah. This is the guy who actually fabricated a treason plot against the Monroes. Carol Ann Monroe and her husband, Bruce Monroe, and another Army officer. This is the guy. Take a look at him. This is the guy. Yes. Sidney James is the guy. Now, after there was a change of government, and rightly so, a change of government. I see a lot of you talking about special branch, right? Oh, yeah. Now, I want to take this thing. I want to take this thing down for now. A lot of you don't know what the struggle was like. Being on the ground with boots, real boots, as a real political soldier on the battlefield. It wasn't easy. So if you think that it's just talk and talk about this struggle, no, it wasn't easy to remove that dictatorship in 2015. It came with tremendous sacrifices. People were assassinated, people were tortured, people were incarcerated on trumped up charges, people received pellet bullets and all these sort of things. Sadly, a lot of those who were in their offices, whether they were ministers, whether they were government officials under the coalition, they didn't understand the struggle. They didn't understand the reason why they were where they were, in their fancy air-conditioned offices, in their fancy vehicles. Some of them had drivers and security at home and all these sort of things. And so they took those things for granted. They took the people for granted. That's for another day, another story. Now let's get back to this guy here. He went over and he became a police officer, deputy commissioner of police. From the Army, deputy commissioner of police, he was sworn in and he became the head of SOCU. SOCU is the special organized crime unit that went after, and it is there to go after individuals who thief state properties, assets belonging to the state. As you know, they went after, and rightly so, they went after Anil Nandalal. They didn't go after Anil Nandalal because, yes, this guy, thank you, Lemon, this guy, Anil Nandalal, because of law books that were illegally removed from his chambers. But yet he gave an explanation that Donald Ramotar said it was okay to take state property. Can you believe that? Donald Ramotar is saying that it was okay for him to take the law books. This guy. And so SOCU, part of their responsibilities was to go after thieves. thieves, right? Now, I'm not saying this guy is a thief. I am not saying this guy, Anil Nandalal, is a thief. And I want you guys to know this quite clear. I am not saying that this guy is a thief. All I'm saying is that there was an issue with the law books, allegations that he stole those law books. The evidence was there. But he claimed that Ramutar told him. Now, let's get back to this guy. Long story short, this guy is supposed to go after thieves, right? He was supposed to go after thieves with evidence that they stole stuff from the state. But, you know, they played a lot of games. He played a lot of games. A lot of files were dumped. A lot of files were missing, and it stymied the process and all these sort of things. So now look, this guy, he's no longer head of SOCU. They put another guy with bunch of question marks behind him by the name of Karim Baksh. Lots of question marks behind him. Karim Baksh, a very junior police officer to head SOCU. Now, this guy here now, look at it. The meat of the story, sorry. I'm not, if you guys can see my face, I am not laughing. I swear I'm not laughing. This guy is now wanted. He is a former senior police officer, former senior Guyana Defense Force officer, is now wanted for fraud. FRAUD. He is wanted for fraud. Allegations of fraud. Now, what should happen to all of the people that this guy, who is now wanted for fraud, what should happen to the people that he sent to prison? What do you guys think should happen to all of those folks who have been convicted because of that guy? Sidney James, that guy who is now wanted. Where is Sidney James? Is there a reward for him? If you know where Sidney James is hiding, inbox me, call me on WhatsApp or wherever. I need to know where he is. We need to know where he is so that we can grab him. Citizen's arrest. Sidney James, where are you? If you're listening to me right now, call me, talk your side of the story. I'm prepared to give you an opportunity to talk your side of this story. Why are you wanted? Who is claiming that you committed fraud? You took their money, you did all sorts of things. Fraud. Now, I'm not talking about the fraud when, if somebody might say, hey, Ben Chap, you take $1 from somebody and you didn't give them. Well, it's okay. That's not the sort of fraud we're talking about. You're a senior officer. A senior police officer. It doesn't look good. It surely doesn't look good at all. So, Mr. Sidney James, I want to help you. I know you have done a lot of wrong things to me and to others. The Monroes, Carol Ann Monroe, her husband Bruce Monroe, and the other officer, Army officer, who you went and you held that Bible. You swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And you lied on those individuals. Took them away from their families for over 1 year. Locked that woman, Carol Ann Monroe, in solitary confinement. For the most part of that 1 year, she was held at the New Amsterdam female prison. Compliments of you, Sidney James. Compliments of you. Whilst I'm not rejoicing at your situation, I'm not. Trust me, I'm not. But if you do the crime, be prepared to do the time. And I know the guys at Lusignan prison do have a nice mattress or hammock waiting for you so that you can lay in one of those hammocks or lie on one of those little small sponge bed. It will be nice and cozy for you. Nice and cozy for you, Sidney James. And I bet John, Dexter, Bozo, Haridat, Dilip, and Kumar are waiting for you. Fresh meat. So if you are listening again, turn yourself in. I'm willing to facilitate you right here on Ben Shop Radio. And before we get to our guest, I can imagine how he would sound. Just imagine that the phone rings and he calls. Hi, Mark. Yeah, Sidney James here, man. Sidney James. This is your boy, Sidney James. Sorry, man. You know those days when I harassed you? Man, it was political, you know. It was political. And when I sent the Monroes up to jail, it was political, you know. My hand was tied. I couldn't do much, you know. But man, I'm sorry. But look, Mark, I call you because of this fraud thing. You know, it's political too, right? Yeah, man. You know, some drug men saying that, and some money launderers saying that I took money from them. And it's not so, man. It's not so. It's not so. It's not so. You best turn yourself in. Turn yourself in as quickly as possible. Turn yourself in. Let's get to Springlands. They're claiming that this prisoner was found hanging in a lockup at Springland Station, right next to where the police inquiry desk is. But this man, they're claiming, the police now claiming, that he hung himself. I don't know. Investigations again. Another investigations. Let's get to this guy, this doctor, Colin Roach. Yep. Colin Roach. First I'm hearing of him, but it seems as though a lot of people know him and they like him. Did a lot of good works based on the comments that I'm seeing on social media. My condolences to his family, his friends, and his colleagues. I don't know the circumstances, but this is brutal. This is beyond sad. I don't know what the circumstances are, but I hope that they catch the culprit or culprits, the murderer or the murderers very, very soon. His car stolen, head banged in, all sorts of things. We saw that there was a what looks like a COVID-19 card. I don't know. It's horrible. I don't want people to be sending me photographs of this gentleman, this doctor, in that condition. You don't send people photographs like that unless you ask their permission. Do not do it. Just do not do it, man. Those of you who saw the photograph, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. They got to solve this guy's murder, this doctor's murder. They have to do that. Again, condolences to his family members. Colin Roach, Dr. Colin Roach. Before we move on, look, GRA must give personal tax info to Soku to aid major money laundering probe. Court rules. Give the documents to Soku, and what's going to happen? Soku is not going to persecute those big money launderers in Guyana who are described as businessmen. Businessmen? Come on, man. Lots of money launderers are being described as businessmen. Businessmen. Can you believe that? Being described as businessmen. Got news that this guy, former Flying Stars president Randolph Ducky Singh, passes away. A lot of you should know Ducky. Randolph Ducky Singh. A lot of you should know him. Did a lot of work around the communities, cycling, sports, you name it. Every single thing. So Randolph Ducky Singh, no stranger to a lot of you. No stranger to a lot of you. Condolences to his family, his loved ones, his friends, and the community. May his soul rest in peace. Randolph Ducky Singh shouldn't be no stranger to you guys. Now this here caught my attention. Van West Charles says Amna Ali, a threat to free, fair, transparent PNCR Congress. Van West Charles, Dr. Van West Charles also, here is, blast Aubrey Norton's campaign for circulating false. Where are the Aubrey Norton folks at? Huh? Where are the Aubrey Norton folks at? Where are the Aubrey Norton folks at? Van West Charles says Amna Ali a threat to free, fair, transparent PNCR Congress. Dr. Van West Charles also blast Aubrey Norton's campaign for circulating false. Oh, poor Aubrey and Aubrey supporters. Sharon Green, how are you doing? Poor Aubrey and Aubrey supporters. Straight to our guest, man. Straight to our guest. Straight to our guest. Oh, gosh. I don't know. Poor Aubrey supporters getting blame and all sorts of things. Aubrey campaign. Good evening to you, Mr. Tion Coggins. How are you, sir?
Good night, Mark. Good night. I'm good. Thanks for having me on, brother. It's always a pleasure being on.
Yeah. So good to have you on. So now you are watching the campaign. You're watching how things going, preparing for the PNCR's Congress. I just read this headline here. Charles says Amna Ali, a threat to free, fair, transparent PNCR Congress. Blast Aubrey Norton's campaign for circulating false list. Take a bite of that right away.
And it continues, Mark. More of the same, more of the same. It seems like the fallout from the 2020 elections hasn't ended. It seems like within the PNC, personal factions are still going at it. And I think as the campaign proceeds, you'll see that more and more come out on the campaign trail. I think the approach actually is very, very distasteful. I think senior party members should at least have the decorum to keep certain things in-house, you know? I don't think a news article is necessary to handle an in-house issue such as that, you know? But I think it's going to get even worse as the campaign progresses. I think one person that you haven't heard much from is the acting party leader, Volda Lawrence. I haven't heard much from her since the campaign has started. She is very, very tight-lipped. We haven't had many endorsements outside of what Mr. Hammond had at his launch. But I think it's just more of the same, Mark. I think the PNC as a party is far from a weak party. They still have strength. There's still a solid base for them to turn to. But I think they're hindering their own growth. The fallout from last year's election is still a bitter taste in their mouth.
Very bitter taste in a lot of their mouths. And I just wish that some of those former ministers were out there campaigning. But during the campaign, it was difficult to see a lot of them, lots of them. But anyway, that's another story. Why is this Congress and the election, the Congress and the elections, why is it so important to young people? Why is it so important to you?
Well, Mark, first of all, I should say this. I'm not a card-holding party member. So I'm trying my best to speak from an objective standpoint as just a young person looking at the political landscape of the country. This Congress basically decides the future of one of the major political entities in Guyana. The PNC has been a staple in Guyana politics from the beginning. And I think coming out of the 2020 elections, stability was needed. I think this Congress will guide the vision for the party at least for the next 5 years. And I think that is critical if we want, one, a strong opposition for the remaining 4 years. If we need a strong opposition, the party structures of itself must be coherent. They must allow for better movement, better mobilization, more involvement of young leaders, more empowerment of young leaders. So I think that is a major deficit in the current party structure. But outside of that, I think that this Congress, if they get it right, could be the turning point of a new era in PNC politics.
A
But
new
they need
era.
to get it. They need to get it right.
What should they do to get it right, from your standpoint?
Well, from in my opinion, I think they should connect with the base. I think a lot of polling should be done to understand firstly, what is the perception of the party right now in Guyana. We know that you have a base, you have loyal followers. They've been following you for decades. But outside of your base, what is the perception of the party following the fallout of the 2020 election? How does the ordinary, I might not go and vote today or tomorrow, man, feel about the party? How does he look at the prospective leadership candidates? So I think that should have been the starting point, getting an understanding of where the party actually is, and then you could formulate a strategy to not only attack but to build out the party. Because if we follow the numbers declared by GCOM, in several areas where the former administration would have made significant investment, they didn't reap any rewards as it comes to votes. So therefore, the political campaigning aspect of the party was flawed. Because at the end of the day, elections about mathematics, not about likes or Facebook numbers. So I think that would be a major starting point, getting a feel of where the party actually is, understanding how much support they need and where areas there's a clear deficit. But I think the main thing would be unity inside the party. I think pushing a younger candidate would have benefited them. At least nominating a younger candidate for leadership would have benefited the party immensely. I think the fact that you haven't seen not one quote unquote young person, not even nominated at this point in the race, that shows how a lack of youth empowerment is missing from within the party structure. And that's a major deficit. You can't understate that.
All right, major deficit. Let's touch on the perception of people outside of the party. What are some of these perceptions as it pertains to the party after, as you would term, the fallout from the 2020 election? What are some of those perceptions outside there?
I would think at least 55% of the country. I don't have data to support this, so this is just me. I think at least 55% of the country outside of the party's core base actually believe that the last year's elections were rigged, or there was a clear attempt to rig the elections. I don't agree with that position. I think somewhere along the line, GCOM as a machinery failed to carry out their constitutional mandate, and that led us into a almost constitutional and electoral crisis. The country was at the brink of civil war. We saw protests in places all over Guyana, in the East Coast, in Georgetown. We saw violence against civil servants. So I think GCOM really failed the country. I think the leadership of GCOM more so really failed the nation during the 2020 elections. But I think mainly for the PNC and to an extension the coalition to have any real eminence again, they have to unite, and also they have to engage more civic participation. They have to allow people, there has to be a major outreach to not only strengthening the party numbers, but to broaden the cross-section of people that you need. You need different skills. As a young person, I see this current batch of campaign, and this is just my honest opinion. Again, I'm not a card-holding party member. I see this leadership campaign as just more of the same. Guys that have been around from the 70s, from the 80s, and they're trying to formulate policies that will not only affect me, but affect my children going forward. They want to represent the interests of not me, but other people of my age, when there's a clear question of can they connect? Can they connect? So I think there's a lot of work to be done, but I think once they unite and they get a common understanding, that last article that you shared, Mark, that is literally more of the same. More of the same.
Okay, more of the same. You are speaking of the article there with Dr. Van Miss Charles on his take on the current General Secretary of the party, Miss Amna Ali. Um, Now, the question is, looking at these three candidates, you mentioned about getting crossover votes, uniting the party, and all of these things. Looking at all three of them, isn't there a single one there of those can do that?
I think, honestly, the last two elections, according to data, had the highest number of voter turnout. So I think it won't be more about getting the numbers, because we understand that every election would have over 200,000 voters per party. That's the trend right now. We see the numbers going up in a certain direction. But my thing is, can they connect? Can they go into the grassroots and people feel them? Can a person, a common man, the man selling honey roasted nuts on the bus park, can he see that person and said, you know what, I feel that Mr. Harmon, Mr. Norton, Mr. Van West Charles, Dr. Van West Charles, sorry, really represents my interest? I think, from my perspective, I think a lot of people see them as fragments of the old political elite. They still represent some shape and form of the old political elite. They represent success over decades. Very, very brilliant men, very well achieved, very many times more wise than I am. But I think for this generation, and I think it actually played out the last election. We saw modern political tactics being deployed, and at some point in time, the coalition was always one step behind. And I think that's what you need. You need someone that will be forward thinking, someone that is versed in what is happening right now, understand how to maneuver the geopolitical landscape, and to connect with young voters. So I just see more of the same in all three of them. But, and I won't have an endorsement right now, but I think some are more competent than others. But yeah, there's definitely potential there.
Definitely potential. And I think a lot of people might be sharing the same sentiments, a view that they have no horse in the race. At least I don't, but quite a few people seem to have their horse in the race. Some are for Harmon, some are for Aubrey Compton Norton, some are for Dr. Van West Charles. And now, I was going to ask that what exactly, because someone can be young and still wouldn't or doesn't have a vision as to how to take the party forward. Someone can be young and have dictatorial tendencies. Someone can be young and still be corrupt. What exactly, other than young? Because you mentioned this thing. Does that play out often, that a young person can make those changes, or age doesn't really matter for you?
No, I won't say age doesn't matter, because a certain level of wisdom does come with age. I would be ignorant to say that a young person is as wise and competent in every facet as someone their senior. I won't be that ignorant to say that, Mark. But what I mean is that you have young professionals. And my entire goal, if you're in a political machinery, a major political party like the PNC, would not be to decide what would be the best leader, quote unquote, for the party, but what would be the best strategy to get the party back in government. So within the party structure in itself, you may have a leader, but you have organs that support that leader, that will machinery that will enable the party itself to grow and also to retain government. I think the focus on the leader and less on the structure that surrounds the leader is what is getting a lot of people caught up, because a leader is basically the face of the brand, but the machinery behind him is what really pulls it. I remember in a lot of circles, they called Mr. Granger, the former President Brigadier Granger, a one-man army, a one-man machinery, a dictator. You understand? So if the party is coming from that, I think the obvious next step is to, okay, we remove one person, let's strengthen the structure, and then prop up an individual that we can support. So I'm not saying that youth is the only thing, but I'm saying a young face, in my opinion, is better than a more known one.
I want to say something, but like the words aren't coming out of my mouth at this time deliberately. So, but you did say, and I get your point, and I do get your point. So you did say that some of the people's views is that Mr. Granger, his leadership style as president, was a one-man army, and he was a dictator. Do you agree with that perception or that sort of description of Mr. David Arthur Granger?
I think at the end of the day, Mark, whenever the ship goes down, the captain will take the blame for it. And that is my honest position. I think if things had gone a different way, let's say the coalition had won the elections, I think those whispers would have been more tamed. So I think at the end of the day, whenever things go south, you have to be the leader has to be held accountable. And if your support base, if the people closest to you, the ones that, like we say, are supposed to be propping you up, are supposed to make sure that the machinery is turning over, don't have confidence in you, Mark. At some point in time, there's need for self-reflection. You know, everybody isn't perfect. People are flawed. People will err. So that's my position on that. But when we go back to the leadership topic, I think what we need to focus on mostly is look at the opposition right now. The opposition is highly capable. We have very intelligent persons as MPs. You may disagree in certain aspects, but I think you have highly intelligent people in there. But I think a uniform focus is what's lacking. I think coming out of the document that is the 2020 election, that more focus should have been on the voters list. If we're talking about the attempt or the quote allegations of mishandling of the elections and rigging the elections, I think more focus should be placed on the voters list. If consultation between the opposition and the government isn't happening, I think the first consultation should be on what the voters list should look like. Last year, there was a landmark case both at the Court of Appeal in Guyana and at the CCJ, where they decided that residency isn't required to be added to the voters list. No one is challenging that. Recently, there was a Starbuck News editorial by Christopher Ram, and he said it's simple. You get a bipartisan approach in the National Assembly and have a 2/3 vote, and you amend the Constitution, or the government, using their majority, simply amend the Representation of the People's Act and take out the residency requirement. So why are we not having that conversation? And I think any leader of a political machinery that I would want to support, it has to follow a certain pattern. You have to show me that we're heading in a certain direction.
Well said, Mr. Theon. Coggins is with us this evening, a young man very interested in politics. He's what I would consider a real political scientist. You know what I mean? You've mentioned in terms of a new voters list and all these things. People want to hear these candidates talk about issues, not throwing a little mud here and there, not suing, talking, and have some of their supporters cussing out people. Vote for Aubrey or vote for this. You know, people don't want to hear. It's a turn off. But what exactly should these three main who claim that if they are nominated for whichever, they will run? But let's face reality. These are three of the main candidates. What should these people be discussing?
Like I said, Mark, let's go straight back to the grassroots. I think if you have the voters list and bring the voters list back into focus, I think that is one thing that would unite the base of the party. I think the second thing that would unite the base of the party is what's happening at GCOM right now. You have the COVID pandemic. I think the COVID pandemic is something that Guyana has to really take stock on. The issue of the Sputnik vaccination, that's when you look at the list of countries that actually bought Sputnik vaccines from the Russian sovereign fund, for Guyana to even be included on that list is very disappointed. So the management of the COVID-19 pandemic, there's so many things. The crime rate in Guyana is skyrocketing again. We see crime all over, and not just simple crime. We see serious crime on a steady increase. So there's a lot to talk about. And Mark, something that I haven't even heard mentioned recently is the China Railway Company getting both the contract for the Harbour Bridge and the Amelia Falls project. Mark, up to 2019, that said company was barred from all World Bank projects globally because of unfair bidding practices. These are things that I think our base need to know. These are things that I think will educate our base, allow us to act from a more informed and intellectual capacity, and strengthen our grassroots support. Let people know that you're speaking about the issues that matter, and then you have a strong platform to move forward from. I don't know what's happening.
All right, sorry about that. We had to switch. We had to switch things up.
How about that,
Uh,
Mark?
yeah, that's all right. Bad internet connection tonight. Blame it on our studio in Guyana. Blame it on Lemon. Probably didn't pay the bill. But go ahead, sir. In terms of what people are looking for in these candidates, what exactly are people looking for, sir?
Like I said, Mark, like you have to be able to connect with
I'm
our.
sorry. I guess my question is, sorry. What should these people be talking about? These candidates.
Like I said, Mark, you have to be able to connect with what the man on the ground, the grassroots supporter, is feeling. Right now, I saw there's a meme circulating on social media with how the price of a simple commodity as cooking oil has skyrocketed over the last 4 months. Yes, we understand there's a certain bottleneck in the global supply chain, but other countries have been able to plan, have been able to put systems in place to prevent these prices increases from falling down into the ordinary man. Things like this is where you see a proactive government. I was talking to a young economist in Guyana recently, and he told me our government right now is operating a economy based on borrowing. The cash grant, I agree wholeheartedly because I support a government looking out for the welfare of their citizens. So I agree with the cash grant, but the cash grant is another loan. The school voucher is another loan. The infrastructure projects are another loan. It's basically you're taking all these loans to back them up on the perceived or the hopeful aspect of the oil wealth. This is the Venezuela model. Chavez did this in the early 90s, and that is what has Venezuela now in the position that it is. You take all this debt, waiting on the finances that you're projecting to have, and if anything goes south, the country is in a national debt crisis. So the economic model that is really being applied right now by the government, I think it is basically setting the foundations for a welfare state. I think less handouts and more empowerment. But I think the infrastructure projects will bring major development and ease a burden and improve the livelihoods of folks in Guyana. But the opposition has a lot to talk about. There's a lot happening. COVID is still there. And a proactive opposition is key to civic participation. If the opposition is not proactive, then your base dies. So the opposition has to be more proactive. They have to hit on the issues that people want to hear about. And on that note, I have to congratulate you because you've been doing this continuously. We have a lot of lengthy conversations on some of these issues, so I know how passionate you are. But there's a lot to do. There's a lot of work to do. But it starts with having the proper structure in place. And as a young person that understands what is happening around me, I'm looking for a party with structure.
A party with structure, indeed. Just moving away, let's head back to GCOM. You have mentioned, and quite correctly, that GCOM lacks proper leadership. Were you surprised when this guy, Gokul Budu, actually threw his hat in the race? He actually applied for that job, knowing the controversy surrounding this guy. Were you surprised?
Actually, no, Mark, I wasn't surprised. I was more surprised when I saw Mr. Anil Giddings, the IT officer from the whole GCOM fiasco last year. When I saw him apply, that was a bigger surprise to me. Gokul Budu wasn't.
We're going to get to Anil Giddings shortly. He was the IT head, caught up in a tape controversy. We know that. I don't know if all of our listeners do know, but this guy, Gokul Budu, according to the news, he's no longer in the race. He says, look, I withdraw. I'm not running any, I no longer apply for this position. So he's out. Good for you, Gokul Budu. Go and sleep. So he's out of the race. Remind our listeners a little bit about this other applicant, Giddings. Remind our listeners about that IT guy.
I was following the 2020 election very, very closely because I think it was one, as a law student, I think it expanded the judicial practice of our country. It put Guyana on the forefront of landmark legal precedents. So I was following it very, very closely. Also, it was the first time that in our region, an election result was delayed for such a period. So it was landmark in many, many aspects. So I was following it very, very closely. And this guy name kept popping up every time something was happening. So he was given
every time something, 1 second, every time something bad was happening. My term, something bad was happening at GCOM. Because he was the IT guy, probably still is the IT guy. But continue.
Yeah, so, and I saw it play out in a certain aspect that, okay, he's very predominant, you know? So when I saw him apply as one of the applicants for the CEO position, I was very surprised. I think I'll hold my opinion. I'll reserve my opinion on that one for now. But that shocked me more than Gokul Budu.
That shocked you more than Gokul Budu. There are other applicants. Do you think, though, that the next person who sits there as the chief elections officer should be a non-Guyanese? Because we know there's a Jamaican, there's someone from the US, and I think there's another one from St. Kitts or one of those other, or Grenada, somewhere there. Should the next CEO of GCOM be a non-Guyanese?
Mark, that's a very, very tough question because Guyanese are not. Doing your job and upholding a statutory responsibility comes to the moral fabric of a person. So we can't say that someone being effective or executing their constitutional duties to the best of their abilities is not a trait, or there's no Guyanese competent enough to do that. So I won't say wholeheartedly that it has to be a foreigner that fills the position. I think that the position should be vetted properly by the commission. I think whoever gets the position should puts country above self and execute their constitutional duty to the best of their ability and as impartial as possible. So I won't say that it has to be a foreigner. I won't say that.
But let me take you back. Probably you're a young man running around still in primary school. when, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you are young. I'm an older guy now, right? So I take umbrage when you talk about just young people and leaving us old people out from the political decision-making process. I was once sitting where you were, calling for young people to be involved in politics, and that the older folks should give young people a chance. Now I'm on the opposite side, right? Listening to you, a young man. But when Joe Singh was the chairman of GCOM, a lot of people had hopes, lots of people, that this is a man who's going to straighten things out. This is a man who's going to make things happen. This is a man who's going to uphold the Constitution. He lasted just a couple of years. He got vexed and he resigned for a general, a brigadier of the army to throw in his towel, just like that, surrendered. I don't know. Then there's another Singh, not Did Not Sing, Claudette Singh. Claudette Singh. Lots of people had high hopes for that woman, including yours truly. I jumped on the mountaintop and I was singing. I sang for people night and day during the elections, when the PPP folks were cursing her out, when people wanted to kill her, and all these sort of things. I was on the mountaintop singing on behalf of Claudette Singh. Garam Koma Boji Gal. I was singing all sort of songs, chutney, English, all things I was singing in praise of Claudette Singh. But she swing. She swing. I don't know. Do you think before the next elections, whether local government elections or general and regional elections, that GCOM is going to get its darn act together?
Matt, that's an easy question. The answer is no. I think the current structure of GCOM doesn't allow for bipartisan action. Most recently, the move to add the 10-year experience requirement for the CEO, the opposition commissioners voted one way, the government commissioners voted one way, and then the chair voted with the government. I think that has been the trend over at least the last year. I think politically that has been the trend for some time since 2015. So I don't see GCOM changing until real electoral reform happens. And electoral reform for me, Mark, again, begins with an updated voters list. Local government elections, general regional elections, it could happen next year, 10 years from now. But I think the next election we have to get it right, or we'll be going down a slippery slope. I think I support residency as a requirement, but I understand the importance of making sure that the voters list is a true representation of the interests of the Guyanese population. In 2 election cycles, if my data isn't wrong, the voters list will have more people than actually the Guyanese population, and that is insane, just because of the residency requirement. So I think it's in the interest of good governance. It's in the interest of free and fair elections. Not saying that the 2020 elections were not, because the courts, and as a law student, I respect the ruling of the courts. The courts have presided over them. But I think GCOM, the action of GCOM starts at the chair, and electoral reform, which begins with a new voters list.
I got you. I agree with you 100%. But you also know as a law student that sometimes the court gets it wrong.
No comment, Mark.
I got you. No comment at all. But we do have a bloated voters list that should have been corrected before we got into the elections. But the ABC countries and all of them with vested interest that were more concerned about the billions of dollars of oil and wealth. They were not concerned about democracy. They were not so concerned about free and fair elections and a clean voters list. they were all concerned about getting the darn elections over by any means necessary. Hence, we are where we are today because that list was bloated. Now, here is, and I'm looking at the time, but we seem to have a little better internet connection now. I want you to, as a law student, based on what you have observed, based on what you probably know, based on what you saw, do you honestly believe that the government of the day or the installed regime of the day is a true reflection of what the people actually voted for?
In my honest opinion, the numbers, the votes cast, and the percentage of the voter turnouts from the votes declared don't make logical sense to me. The activity that we saw, especially in Region 4 on the East Coast, don't make sense to me. The political involvement of the international community does not make any sense to me. The CARICOM report that was used as the basis of the declaration does not make any sense to me.
So, in other words, you're a law student, and I understand exactly what you're doing there. I understand, and I respect what you're doing there, right? You're being a lawyer. Well, you're a lawyer in the making. And I'm glad that you know that you're a lawyer in the making, and you're not representing yourself as a lawyer because you're not yet a lawyer. And I want you to finish up law school, take your bar exams, and become a lawyer. Good. Now, based on what you have said there, we know that this current regime is not a true reflection of the people based on the evidence that came out. But I don't want to walk us through what transpired, but we saw all the evidence that's leaning towards the fact that what we have in Guyana right now is an installed regime, Looking back and what transpired during those 5 months, what could the leadership, what could the president then, the Honorable David Arthur Granger and his team could have done different?
To be honest with you, Mark, I'll put again, I said it early in the program, I put the brunt of the blame on GCOM, the commission, the chair. I think they had ample opportunity, ample time to take control of the situation. I think recently a report came out of the UE Faculty of Political Science that stated that GCOM's indecisiveness and lack of what quote unquote teeth to act during the election fiasco really protracted the conflict even more. So that was that there. The recount, I think I understand from a political standpoint why President Granger agreed to the recount. Would I have done the same? The answer to that question is clearly no, Mark. I would have placed the power on the constitutional body responsible for carrying out elections. I would not have asked any outsiders to oversee a recount. The sole responsibility of Guyana issues is Guyana. Guyana has a constitution that guides them. Guyana has constitutional bodies that are funded, that have qualified, seasoned veterans that should know how to execute their duties. So I think the former president did err in that line, but from a political standpoint, I understood why it was important to have that recount to show what was really happening, what actually transpired on election day. The move going forward to have the statements of poll used as the only form of verification is something that I think the opposition has to bring more light to. The statements of polls were very, very questionable coming out of the last election. We don't know when the court matters, the private court matters against the returning officer, the CEO, and Mr. Mingo will be finished to have a conclusion, finality to what really or what they are guilty of, if they are guilty of anything to begin with. So we don't know when that matter will happen. So making that shift, I think that's something that the opposition has to pay a lot of attention to. But going forward, like I said, Mark, it's all about keeping the pressure on GCOM and making sure that the members of the commission execute their constitutional mandate to the best of their ability and in an impartial manner.
You know, I agree with you in terms of the Recount process that maybe Mr. Granger should have held his ground to say, President Granger should have said to GCOM, they have a constitutional mandate to declare free and fair elections. However, I thought it would have ended right there and have the chair of GCOM execute her constitutional mandate, not out of emotions or whatever. But because of the pressures coming down from the ABC countries, you have Mike Pompeo, you had the undersecretary or the deputy State Department official and all these different individuals talking about sanctions and rigged elections and what that they knew what the heck they were up to. It was a matter of regime change for them by any means necessary. So from a political standpoint, David Arthur Granger was under tremendous amount of pressures. He was under pressure from Mike Pompeo, that guy. He was under pressure from Sarah Lynch at the US Embassy. He was under pressure from the Canadians. He was under pressure from the UK. And all these things. On top of that, he was under pressure from his own support base. Under pressure. Now he decided that, look, the recount would prove once and for all to do a comprehensive forensic audit of the 2020 elections, which is what they did. 4 stages. 4 stages. Had they completed the 4 stages, to this day, David Arthur Granger and the coalition would have been in office. But no, the ABC representatives, Mike Pompeo, who is gone, he's gone, and that's a guy that believed that Trump won a second term. Even when Trump lost the elections, he claimed that Trump will be sworn in. So sometimes you wonder the mindset of those type of individuals, right? Mike Pompeo and others. But they con David Arthur Granger. David Arthur Granger, my friend, is like them guys who now come out from church and they walk in the village and they gone and eat a coconut tree to play rap. They know they can't gamble. They know they can't play, because the guys them gonna rob him. And that's exactly what the PPP and those ABC folks did. They robbed David Arthur Granger the elections. They tricked David Arthur Granger. That is why he's out of office today, because he was tricked. I don't know. Sorry that I spoke so long. I don't know if you need to pick up on any of what I said.
So Mark, this goes back to my earlier comment when I said a leader that will be capable to maneuver the current geopolitical climate, a leader that will be versed in the intricacies of international organizations and how to lobby. I think modern politics is where we're heading. So as a bystander just watching on, the structure and leadership has to be able to maneuver the new landscape of geopolitics. So, like we're agreeing with each other there, but I also need that going forward.
You know, well said, Mr. Coggins. And I want to even support you again and give you some credit for all that you have said here this evening. And with that said, I again endorsed you and some of the comments that I'm seeing, that you will make a darn good lawyer, constitutional lawyer or criminal lawyer. You will make a good lawyer. So keep it up in your law school. Now, let me say this. You're welcome. Apart from the pressure that David Arthur Granger was under, and this is no excuse to Mr. Granger. I'm of the view that maybe we should not have gone into that recount process. He should have stood his ground and say, to hell with what the ABC folks are saying. But a lot of you guys don't know the pressure, a heck of a lot of pressure. And maybe if it didn't go this way, a couple of people would have been assassinated, including David Arthur Granger. That's just my opinion, mind you. Now, Claudette Singh was also under tremendous amount of pressure from some people in the international arena, some State Department officials, and even some people right there in the ABC countries who were calling her frequently, every single day. The pressure was up, the pressure was on, and Claudette Singh was under enormous amount of pressure. Some pressure also from drug lords. That's what and I have no apologies. I am saying because I know what I'm saying. I don't know, pressure all around. That is why we have an installed, an illegitimate regime under the PPP. Illegitimate installed regime. That is what it is. And when they're illegitimate and installed, they've got to be treated like that. We're looking at the time, though. We're looking at the time. Your closing remarks, sir. Address our people. And if I haven't asked a question that you believe that is something so important that you want our listeners to know, take all the time, sir.
Well, thanks for having me again, Mark. This is just our personal conversations on air for the viewers here. We have these conversations all the time, so it's good that we could engage your audience. But my message to your audience and to broader Guyana is that it begins with us. It begins with the citizenry having more civic participation, us holding our leaders more accountable, us equipping our communities to strengthen them economically, bonding with our young leaders. I think we have to go back to creating better communities to start with, and then that will branch out to a better country. So it's the responsibility of every Guyanese to act in a manner that will shape the future of our country. I think if we continue down the path that we're going right now, I see a welfare state being developed, especially for Afro-Guyanese. And particularly to my Afro-Guyanese brothers and sisters, I think we have to focus more on community development. We cannot wait until a bag pass or something happen for us. Simply looking out for the young ones in your community is a start. You don't know which young mind you will touch, which young mind you will influence. And for broader Guyana, the same principle applies. The more we live in unity, the more the country will strive, the more the country will get better. So I think going forward, the responsibility is that of all Guyanese to work towards creating a better Guyana and holding our political leaders accountable.
All right, well said, Mr. Coggin here. Well said. I certainly can't disagree with anything that you have said there. And were you a member, a card-bearing member of the People's National Congress? I would have asked for you as a young man to throw your hat in the race. And I tell you this, if you make up the four candidates, all four of you guys there, Aubrey Compton Norton, Frederick Harmon, that is Joseph Frederick Harmon, or Van West Charles, and you, Tion Coggins, I'll tell you this, I'll have a horse in that race. All of our listeners know who that horse is. And my horse in that race would have been Tion Coggins for leader of the People's National Congress reform. But maybe one day.
Let's focus on nation building for now, Mark, and what will happen will happen. But let's keep the focus on nation building, and that's my only priority right now.
That's a smart legal answer, indeed. A lot of people would have been voting for you too. And so the point I'm trying to make is not just this hollering about young people, we want young people. Yes, you guys, yes, we want young people. We want a mixture of everybody. A mixture of everybody, not just young, because you need a middle age like me too. Even there are some people my age considering calling themselves young. I accept my position as a middle-aged man, right? Still looking young. Middle-aged man. You're a young man, and older folks like Aubrey Norton, Van West Charles, and Harmon, we still need those older folks. A mixture of everyone, my friend, everyone, to make this thing happen. It cannot happen just with young people. It just
Most
cannot
def-
happen with you.
Most definitely, Mark. Most definitely. The structure is where strength is.
Because have you ever run into a young guy or a young girl and you get this impression that they're old, that you grew up with your grandmother by? You got to grow up with your grandmother. You're walking so slow. But are we talking to you? What's going on? And you could tell the ones that grew up with their grandmother. I'm not saying that Mr. Granger grew up with his grandmother, or Norton grew up with his grandmother, or Van West Charles grew up with his grandmother. But be sure Mr. Harmon looks like he grew up with his grandmother, though. Good evening to you, Joe. Speaking of Mr. Joseph Harmon, the opposition leader, he will be on tomorrow evening. And I want to promise you guys this. I'm not going to spare Joseph Frederick Harmon at all. He will be my guest tomorrow night, right here on 107.1 FM. I look to all of you guys, all of you. When this Congress is over, whoever is elected as the leader, all of you have to put your differences aside. Every single one of you have to put your differences aside and start to rebuild your party. Because if you have a fractured party, if you have a party that is divided, there is no way that party could go into elections, general elections, regional elections, or local government elections and win. It is not going to happen. So after this Congress is over, whoever becomes the new leader, you'll have to rebuild that party. Rebuild it. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Coggins.
Every 6 months, Mark.
Soon to be attorney at law.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
All right,
Appreciate
we'll catch up, brother. Take care.
Oh, yeah, we will catch up indeed. All right. What else is there to discuss this evening? Absolutely nothing else. But I want to remind you guys that tomorrow evening, right here on 107.1 FM, right here, Joseph Harmon, I will ask Lemon to clean out the studio, to do everything, to get some swung, to get some ice, to get whatever Mr. Harmon wants to drink. 50-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever, wine, Jamun wine, whatever, Paiwari, whatever. Because for 1 hour, I promise you guys, I'm going to grill Joseph Frederick Harmon right here. I spoke with him today. I asked him if tomorrow is a comfortable day. He says, yes. Yes. So he is going to be here. And Mr. Harmon, if you're listening, if you're watching, don't disappoint us. Please don't disappoint us. Because if you disappoint us, we here on 107.1 FM wouldn't be reading another press release from you. Somebody said Mr. Harmon is good at press releases, right? Look, I'll be back tomorrow, same place, same time. Thank you all for your time. God bless you. Continue to pray for that beautiful country. Beautiful country. But one more thing before I go, though. One more thing. There are some folks who are listening to us, but they can't comment. And I'm not talking about the trenchies, because once the trenchies get thrown in the trench, they're done with. Let them go. We're not here for people to waste our time or try to distract us. Let them go. You know that Beanie Man song, something about let him go. If I'm let him go. We let the trenchies go, right? Now, those of you who cannot comment and should be commenting, I have seen some of your messages asking me why you can't comment. I honestly don't know why you can't comment. Some people have blamed me for blocking them from commenting on Bench Up Radio 107.1 FM page. I don't know why you can't comment, but I haven't blocked you guys, the legitimate viewers. I haven't blocked you guys. Lemon has told us in a written comment that he hasn't blocked you guys as well. And I believe Lemon. So don't take it personal. It's probably Facebook. But for now, thank you so much. Our usual song, The Battlefield, I have noticed that we get copyright infringement and all these things. We're hoping that Mr. Andrews, Saiku Andrews, can correct that. So for now, we wouldn't be playing that because of copyright infringement. Oh, tonight is, you notice I'm off. early. It's the kid's mom's birthday, Anne's birthday. A glass of wine for me or for us this evening. And wicked, Mark. I love you guys. So long.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cockcrow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cockcrow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Cockcrow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. The naga jackass yard for fetchy load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Banga Mary. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell some picnic a debit fright. Oh Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma Burra Nancy even Watamuma. Oh Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma Burra Nancy even Watamuma. Yeah man, that's the true story that tell the people about life in the country, life in the country.